Featured listener.
Yes, okay. And we have, did we get?
Alec?
Alec, yes, Alec. Oh, yes, over across the river somewhere. Hey, Alec. Or maybe you're in Boston. I don't know, you know.
I'm actually all the way in New Jersey, so really across the river
See?
today.
See?
Yeah,
We don't blame
good to
you.
be here.
I've been there, believe me. So, all right, we'll call the meeting to order. And do we have any input or comments from the general public other than the agenda items? Or any changes to the agenda? Don't hear any. We have our minutes from our April meeting, which Martin sent out.
Two
And
meetings.
we also, right, and then we also have our special meeting in April regarding the municipal planning grant. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve both minutes?
I'll
That
make a
would be-
motion to approve both minutes.
Thank you, Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Martin? Is there any discussion about the minutes? Okay, all in favor? Bob, yes. Martin, yes. Jim and Roger, thank you. So moving right on, Andrea, finally, we've tried for 3 months to get you on the agenda.
I know, finally it works out.
It's not your fault. We have been busy, believe it or not. Little town of Vernon has been busy with all sorts of activities on the planning commission agenda. So back in February, I sent around the minutes to remind everyone that Kathy Erfer gave a presentation similarly on the relicensing of the dams, and Kathy, being the Connecticut River, Vermont, New Hampshire person, suggested we have Andrea with the Massachusetts portion. And I'll just turn it over to you, Andrea.
Okay, sounds
And
great.
we have plenty of time here. You are our featured presentation. We don't have to do a lot with the municipal planning grant coming up with Mark.
Okay, is there any interest in having Mark go first? Mark, I don't know if you're interested in hearing all about the hydro licensing, so.
Yeah, we could change. Mark, would you like to do yours first?
I
can
don't need
on
to.
email.
I mean, I'm interested. I have heard Kathy Erford talk about it before, but I'm happy to wait my turn.
Well, why don't we, thank you, Andrea. That was thoughtful. Why don't we have Mark give us the update on the municipal planning grant? Because he is probably on the clock with our grant money. And I'm sure Andrea's got a lot of interesting things related to our updated town plan and the Vermont Yankee site, but he can always watch a video. I'm sure he'd want to watch the planning commission video later. So let's, would I have a motion to change the agenda to put Mark West on next, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Martin. Second.
Second.
Roger, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, Mark, last Thursday, a week ago right now, we just finished walking the Vermont Yankee site with Corey Daniels and 3 persons from Stevens and Associates.
Yeah.
And Wendy.
And Wendy, right? Yep. Taylor, Brud, myself.
Yes, Taylor and Brud, B-R-U-D.
Yep.
And Mark Westa from Stevens and Associates, me and Wendy Harrison were hosted by Corey Daniels. And we were out there 2 hours and walked from central to south to north and back. Take it, Mark.
All right. So yeah, thank you guys. We had put off the walk for a week because of the weather. It was pretty bad the week before. But last week was a great opportunity. Nice weather, really saw a lot. Corey showed us around, really interesting, very informative. Since that time, I've spent a little time doing some mapping. I did bring some base mapping to the walk that we handed out and people used. And I don't know, Bob, how long you want me to take, but I should probably at least show you what I've been working on. And then if you want me to kind of elaborate more, I'm happy to do that. So will I be able to share my screen? What you guys think?
Yeah, Mark and his crew had a really nice updated base map that we're working off from. A lot of it based on Alex's work.
Yeah.
I think most of you, even our new members, know who Alec is from Antioch, New England graduate program.
So Bob, can you allow me to share my screen? We lost him.
Oh, we lost Bob entirely. Where do I do that? Because when I look at you, I can make you,
Maybe
if I make you co-host, will that work?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, all
Or
right.
if you click the share screen button, there's an up arrow that has options. You want to allow all participants to.
Gotcha. Okay,
share.
go ahead. You should be able to do it now.
Yes, good. All right. Can you all see that?
Not
No.
quite yet.
Oh, I always do that. I always pick the thing and then I forget to hit the actual thing that says share next to it. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the base map that we started with. I have it kind of lopsided to fit better on the screen, but so north is to the left, which is a little odd, but otherwise it doesn't fit super well on the screen. And you know, this is what we typically do. We pull in an aerial photograph, we pull in topographic information, we pull in property data from the state, and they all sort of line up with each other. And we do a lot of this work in AutoCAD, which allows us to, you know, kind of highlight or not highlight things and measure things very easily, which are both very useful for us. So you can kind of see we've gone ahead and laid out some of the main buildings, and some of this is going away. And I think Martin, you mentioned and sent me some information about the updated aerial. We will definitely refer to that. Probably pull it in as a new background here, because obviously things are changing all the time on the site, and the more we can keep up to date, the better. You know, a couple things that are different right away are the cooling towers have been deconstructed quite a bit, and the IFSISFI is being constructed here, which is, you know, kind of where they're putting the spent fuel. So that's more expanded than is in this image. So we can look at an updated one. Interestingly, if we ever need to look at something, if you use Google Earth, the current version of Google Earth is quite up to date. So that's a helpful tool. And we can always go ahead and look at that if we need to. What I've been doing, and so there's only been a few days since the walk, and just kind of thinking about things a little bit. So these are rough ideas. This is how I like to work, is just kind of putting ideas down on paper and then either sharing them with you guys or possibly just revising them and bringing them up to a more professional standard. But I do think it's always good to kind of just walk through things and see what you all think about some of these ideas. So one of the maps that I did, just kind of quickly, and I should point out also that I have not only the map, but I'll click on this. I sort of have a list of the different things. And so these kind of go together, and, you know, it's a little hard to jump back and forth in digital world here. But basically what I'm trying to get at here are what I saw as the bigger restrictions to the site. And this would be something that I would want to talk to you all about and see if you're in agreement. If we think the community is generally in agreement, you know, things like that. So just to kind of quickly walk through those, it's the, you know, it's the fuel storage site itself. Obviously, we're not impacting that at all. There's a sort of stand back distance of at least 100 meters from that. So that's this first inner circle. And then Corey was saying that the Vermont Department of Health and, you know, kind of health regulations are going to want either 150 meters or 200 meters. So that's these next kind of concentric circles going out. I did want to, you know, kind of just put out there that, so this is red as in do not go there. I used a lighter red here because, you know, I do think there may be some uses that are allowed somewhat. I think there's some uses that might be allowed in some of this area. For example, battery storage or, you know, some sort of use that no humans will really ever have to be there. So, you know, we want to be a little careful when we say, when we make things red, as in don't ever go there. So that's kind of all about fuel storage. There's the whole kind of Velco area. This is the new switch gear and kind of transformer area. So that's, you know, probably not going anywhere soon. There's the rail that goes into the site, and that is needed to remove the spent fuel eventually. So, you know, that needs to stay in some form. We possibly could realign it slightly, but it's pretty much there. We have sort of this area under the transmission lines that, you know, it's fairly limiting. We have some farmland, the two kind of big farmland parcels. Would love to talk to you guys a bit about how we do that, if that's, you know, if we can touch that at all, or we want to leave that alone. There's the Governor Hunt kind of house and area. There's this septic area that, you know, is valuable unless we decide we're going in a different direction. And the last thing I just wanted to have on this map is this area, which isn't really part of our study area at all, but it is owned by Great River Hydro. It's a large parcel, and it's directly adjacent to our parcel. You know, there's Governor Hunt Road in between, but I just found that interesting. And I found that out when I was looking at properties, because the properties kind of here, and here are all, you know, really owned by the same landowner as our large parcel. So that's just something interesting to note. Does anybody have any questions about this map?
A couple comments, Mark.
Yeah.
First, where you have the 8 for Governor Hunt.
Yeah.
That property is actually owned by Friends of Vernon Center, so that should not be shown as part of the North Star property.
Yep. Okay.
The pieces of North Star that have frontage on Governor Hunt Road, all those gap tooth
Yes.
things are within the village area. The village area runs along the back of those lot lines, and so obviously would like to be residential in the long run.
Yeah.
The farmland is leased to the Miller Farm.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a question we might actually, as part of this process, take up with the Millers. Not that we're going to resolve it, but they might give us some indications of their interests. You know, as Bob has mentioned in a previous meeting, you know, they were willing at one point to lease part of the land that they own for the gas plant that we were contemplating.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we need to understand how that land fits into their sort of overall operations. But I kind of feel that we should not be looking at it for industrial purposes, but it might, you know, be a way for the village, the residential part of the village to expand a little bit.
Yes.
And then finally, the number 10 land that's owned by Great River. I'm not sure exactly, but what they've done from time to time is on that big field, they've plowed all the topsoil off of it. And then they've dredged the impoundment area behind the dam,
Hmm.
you know, which sort of silts up from time to time. It might be like every 10 years or something.
Yeah.
And then they dump it all on that field and spread it out and put the topsoil back and you know, it goes back to growing corn. I don't know if that's Miller's or somebody else that does that.
Okay.
But then there's also some woodland there.
That's really helpful. Thanks. Any other thoughts about this map at this time?
Isn't Valco relocating the plant that they have that's by the dam somewhere in here?
So part of the plant that's down here is going to move up here?
Yeah, Yeah.
Well, they are somebody, I don't know if it's Velco or somebody else, but off to the off to the right of the edge of this map, kind of where the two roads come back together near the apex there.
Yeah.
There's a substation that's being built.
it's National Grid, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so it's National Grid, which they have a power line that runs from the dam, kind of southwesterly into Massachusetts, connects up with one or two of the other dams down there, and so they're building a switching station, but it's not anything existing that's being moved from at least not from the the plant site.
Okay.
One thing that Corey, this is Bob. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I had to switch to my phone. Something happened with my power on my laptop. One thing Corey confirmed, I think Mark, wasn't that right? And Wendy, that there are cables from the Vernon Dam hydroelectric station, power cables onto the site.
Yeah. I think he was saying they kind of came up into this area.
Right, and that's been discussed as a possibility for a connection to whatever's coming in the future off the dam, and maybe that's something like a battery storage function, which
Yeah.
Andrea and Kathy and Brett Morrison have provided us with some analysis of on the terms of the river management and power generation.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to go on to my next map. And again, this one, it's kind of the same idea, kind of rough, kind of quick, just getting ideas out there. And this one is really just trying to get at some of the things of high value that we know about. So obviously the one is the riverfront. Obviously there's a lot of value there. 2 is kind of the connection to the grid and the Velco switching and transmission lines. 3, there's some wells on site that are highly valuable. 4 is the septic field. 5 is Governor Hunt, although like Martin said, that's not really no longer really on the site, but when you drive in there, I think that adjacency is important, and there are a few other adjacencies that I talk about here, things nearby that are important. 6 and 7 are sort of rail access, and one is sort of freight access, and the other is actual like people Amtrak type movement, and if there's value there. 8 this is a little redundant in a way, but 8 are the farm fields. 9 and 10 are sort of wetland areas, and the Abenaki indigenous people, the lower lands that are about might have been cultural resources, places where they inhabited or or did some of their living. So that brings us to 11, which are some of the views off in the distance. And then 12 is the adjacency to, the school and the possible, sort of village area and all of those connections. So thoughts on those at this time?
Do you want to discuss your next steps, Mark?
Yeah, I'll go through one more map and then I'll talk about next steps.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That's okay. And so yeah, the next, oh boy. The next map is just, it's sort of where I started to say, kind of try to say, all right, where is this leading me at least? And thinking, so the kind of big X's are some of the things we can't really touch. And then the other areas are places that, have potential in different ways that we should consider. So I think these are pretty obvious. Under the transmission lines, the farm fields. C is sort of, kind of like Martin said, the connection to the village and some of these residential lots and how do those work. D, this whole kind of, if you will, excess Velco area, including, possibly moving some of their lower capacity switching areas and utilizing some of this parking. F is the, kind of stand back area that could be, I think as long as there's not a lot of humans there, I'll definitely talk to Corey about this, but there may be some potential for this to be sort of solar or battery storage, something without humans in it a lot. And then sort of this really larger area to the south of the site, which has a lot of potential, near the governor house, good access, good waterfront views, the septic area, that sort of thing. So those were areas that I, kind of outlined, and to me, they're ways to think about sort of distinct areas that each could have their own, usefulness, or could be joined into a sort of larger plan that, does a lot of different things. Any thoughts about that at this time?
Yeah, I think it all makes sense. One thing that occurs to me, Mark, is that regarding this setback from the ISFACs, we might talk with Dr. Bill Irwin. Do you know who that is? He's the state's chief of radiological sciences. And basically, it would be his department to decide how far that fence has to be.
Okay.
And so, we might as well try to get a reading. He's probably not going to commit to anything, but
Right.
Give us some idea. He would have a better idea than, I'm sure Corey has a good idea and he's spoken with him, but I think we ought to get it directly. He is on the NDCAP, but what I can do, if you like, is I'll do like an email intro, if that makes sense.
That would be great.
Then we can address that. And I'll also go and I'll give the Millers a call and see if they're willing to talk a little bit about the farm field.
Yep. All right. So next steps will be, either discussing these maps more or formalizing them more. I would love to get, really dig into these a little bit with this group or a group. Related to the lists, I've started creating a list of the different ideas that I've heard so far. So, I would love to take that talk to you all about that and do some additional brainstorming. I've kind of just recorded anything I've heard so far, or a few of my own ideas for what could be here. We're digging into the usefulness of all the different utilities on site. Many of them obviously have some utility, some usefulness, but when for example, we talked a bit about the wells on site, and obviously they produce a lot of water, but is it kind of the thing that we could easily use for residential use? Well, maybe not. That's a different standard. So kind of digging into what the capacity of the different utilities are, and then how easily could they be permitted or used in different ways, and also just their value to keep them as a permitting tool for the future. So that's something that Bud's looking at, and we're digging into that a bit. And then I guess the last thing is really thinking about the public meeting, and when that's appropriate to jump in, and how much of this thinking do we want to do ahead of time, or do we want to sort of ask the public fairly soon what they want, and talk to them about the project.
Hey, Wendy, what do you think about involving the general public at, showing them maps and getting their input? Should we be further along with some ideas, or do it sooner?
Well, you definitely want to do it after the town meeting, which is May 23rd, right?
Yes, that's Sunday, next Sunday.
Or a week from, yeah. I still have a
Sunday.
lot to get done by then, so. I don't know, I mean, you guys know the community. And there's been well, we would have two public meetings, right? One in the middle and one at the end, or is it just this one?
We're supposed to, the way we were looking at it was we're going to have a public meeting that kind of talks about the project and gathers idea, and then one very much kind of near the end that reports out more or less what we've found.
All right, so then if we're having two, probably the sooner the better. And I know, Mark, you were concerned with people going away for vacation.
Right.
So schedule
maybe-
something for early June.
Early June. Yep.
So like maybe you want to do it in conjunction with our June Planning Commission meeting?
Yeah, I can't get a calendar because I'm looking at this stuff.
I mean, that makes sense for me. I would love to have an opportunity to talk to some or all of you about, some of these ideas and some of this mapping probably before then.
Well, that would be June 9th, our monthly meeting. Maybe we should do it just the week prior.
Mhm.
June 2nd?
Yeah, so we don't know if we'll be able to do it in person though, Wendy.
Right. Well, I mean, there are public meeting regulations now. The town isn't officially doing things except for town meeting in person.
Right.
None of the other boards are meeting.
Well, let's do June 2nd. It's a Wednesday. Do it in maybe 6 p.m. Start a little early. Or 7, I don't know.
No, early's good. And
And
if possible,
Mark-
I would love to do it in person.
Mark, I would envision a presentation basically of where you're at. I mean,
Right.
what we already have is pretty darn good, a base map, all the infrastructure, we know that we don't have 150 acres of developable property. Going back to the scope of your grant, just focusing on those key things.
Yep. All right.
What do you
Sounds
think?
good.
And you want to try to do it in person? That's what I'm hearing.
I would prefer that, but that's me.
Yeah. Well, hey, Wendy, how long is the tent going to be there?
Well, we're just renting it for an evening, but
Okay.
or a day. But let's have that be a goal, and we can talk offline on
All right.
how to make that happen.
Okay.
I think it's better to have input now, when we sort of have a blank slate, and Mark and his crew have filled in some important pieces so far.
Yeah, we'll keep digging into it too.
Okay.
Mark, one other question when you spoke about you're digging into the value of the utilities and so forth. Is septic the sort of the capacity and state of that the septic system part of that, and also, I guess my question would be how what sort of industrial development is possible, while relying on a septic system. Obviously, when they built Vermont Yankee with 600 employees and 900 when they did fuel changes, it was perfectly fine. So, but that was 60 years ago.
Right.
So, what are we going to run into people who say, no, if we don't have town sewer, we're not coming, I guess is the question.
Right. So we'll definitely, kind of lay out what the capacity is and sort of the type of industrial uses that could use that. It's not going to be a heavy user of water, but it might be a moderate user of water.
Yeah.
And I might just add that, and this kind of sets the stage for Andrea. The riverfront access could be amazing once the discharge structure and intake structures are removed, and they're going to be removed. It's actually a phenomenal piece of land on the river, and I would like to schedule another site walk for the rest of the planning commission, Mark, with Corey. He offered that, but maybe once we have this public meeting, get a little further along. They also told us, I don't know if you said this, I lost connection for a few minutes. The office building, they call it the PSB, right, Mark?
Yep.
Will definitely be gone. And, it's not in great condition. It looks kind of good on the outside with 3 floors and a cafeteria and all that, but it's a white elephant, obviously, if the town were to try to take it on. Right, Martin, with the Governor Hunt building,
Yeah, I don't know. It's the first I hear that, but I have heard Corey say, hey, you don't want this building. It's, it's very energy inefficient and all of that.
They have another term for it, which I can't use on Zoom here.
Okay.
Right, Wendy?
Yep. And I didn't hear that they were going to take it down. So I don't know.
Yeah, Mark.
We should clarify that.
Yeah, Corey said it's down. It's gone. Well,
Okay.
I mean,
No, I definitely heard we don't want it.
right. Well, the point is that we have a memorandum of understanding with North Star that the town can opt to ask for certain infrastructure to stay. So I thought it maybe should be in the record that North Star's intention is to remove that building. And unless the select board, it wouldn't be the planning commission, says, no, leave it. I think it's going to be gone within a year.
Well, and that's one of the outcomes of this study. I mean, by the end of this summer, we ought to be able to, by the end of this study, we ought to be able to give them at least a initial list and say, keep this and remove that.
Right.
The majority of that building would be within the restricted area either way. So even if it stayed, it's not necessarily accessible.
That's a good point, Alec, because when you get in the parking lot, you're looking right across at the restricted area.
And Mark, I also had a question and maybe better understanding in talking to Corey and visiting the site, and just in some of the infrastructure that I had digitized, there was one additional well and a few other septic field. And like you're saying, the majority ones, the large ones, is that what you're prioritizing in that way, or I'm just wondering if I should remove those from the story map digitizing.
No, definitely don't. You know, I don't feel like I've given a complete story here. This was a little bit more like getting at my thinking than like
For sure.
fact checked. So yeah, no, and we need to dig into what actually we're trying to get more information from Corey also.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So I must say that North Star, as we've learned, is being really, really helpful and cooperative and providing a lot of information, as they did with Alec, now to Stevens.
And I'll reach out to Corey and double check with him about all the stuff I can share and expediting him sharing stuff as just to keep that conversation going for you.
Perfect. Thanks.
Mark, anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And so we'll wait till our June meeting for a new update,
Okay.
and then we'll schedule the June. Well, why don't we confirm? No, we got to have our June 2nd meeting. Wendy, you and I'll coordinate that.
The public meeting you're talking about,
Yeah.
right?
I think it would be good to have it be a joint meeting or even hosted by the select board.
Yeah, okay. I mean, that, sure. I can check on that.
Okay,
I'll talk to them. Is there any chance it could be at the Governor Hunt House? Are you guys open for business yet?
No, it's we're painting in that room and it will not be ready.
Okay.
okay. All right, well, hey, Mark, thank you. You're off to a good start, obviously. I'm very pleased to have your team on board.
Good. Thank you. And thanks,
Yeah,
Andrea, for letting me jump in.
Yep. Okay, so let's go to Andrea. And Mark, you're free. So,
All right. Thanks.
Hey,
That was
Andrew.
interesting, actually, for me, because I haven't been following what the plans are for reuse, and our daily paper in Greenfield really only covers Franklin County, and for some reason, you know, the state line is a huge barrier, so good to know what's going on.
well, there has been really no press about this project, so you're not missing anything.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for inviting me, and I just want to check just before I go into my presentation, sort of, you know, I have slides that cover sort of the plans for Northfield Mountain relicensing and Turner's Falls Dam. Should I spend less time on the dam? Or are you guys curious about that? It's not really, you know, as directly relating to your town, but.
No, I think our goal here is to have you help inform the town about the issues we should be concerned with, because there will be public comment opportunity. It's actually ongoing.
Yeah.
And what Kathy told us, Kathy Erfer, back in February, is that, you know, the Vernon Dam obviously is in Vernon, but the Turner's Falls Dam has perhaps more impact on Vernon than the Vernon Dam in terms of water level fluctuations, and even recreational access. So
Yeah, it can. Why don't I launch in? Let me make sure that I can share my screen. Yes, looks like I can. All right. Okay. So yeah, I want to go through what has been proposed. Similarly, you know, Kathy explained that Great River Hydro had submitted an amended final license application in December, and FirstLight did the same thing for the Massachusetts facilities. I already had this slide made, but you're familiar with the Great River Hydro locations. FirstLight has, whoops, I'm just trying to minimize the little box with faces and stuff. So Northfield Mountain Pump Storage uses the water from the Connecticut River between the dam. Getting a little feedback here.
That's me. My computer's back. I'm turning off my phone. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, good.
All right. So yeah, Northfield Mountain Pump Storage uses water from the Connecticut River between Turner's Falls Dam and the Vernon Dam. And all 5 of these facilities are getting relicensed at the same time. So it definitely affects a huge chunk of the river. Since Kathy spoke with you, I guess the latest developments are that FERC requested some information from both of the companies regarding their operations models. So Great River Hydro has proposed to change their operations so that they're closer to a inflow equals outflow. And I think Kathy went through that with you guys, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So FirstLight had no knowledge that that negotiation was taking place. And so the model that they used assumed Great River Hydro was basically going to do the same thing they have been doing. So FERC has asked more details about the Great River Hydro model, and then has requested information that FirstLight could then use to rerun their models. So, and the funny thing is that FERC did not require the 2 companies to have like the same type of model or even the same, build in the same years of their models. So FirstLight didn't even include any of the years that Great River Hydro ran their new proposed operations. So FirstLight has to build out new years into their model, and it's going to take them, they've asked for 90 days rather than 30 days. So that is probably pushing the schedule back a little bit. So originally FERC thought they might be ready and have all the information they need by around May, but I think it probably, best case scenario, it's more like July. So at some point, FERC will feel satisfied with all the information that they've gotten, and they'll issue a notice of ready to proceed with their environmental analysis. And that is the time that the 401 water quality certificate application in each state would start. And that's a 1-year clock on that. And then FERC will also set a 90-day comment period in which parties can file to intervene, and then they can write up their long detailed comments. So still don't know exactly when that will happen, but it's probably more like a late summer or fall timeframe.
So this is Bob again. Andrea, it sounds like your input and the other parties that are concerned about water level fluctuation have had a major impact on Great River Hydro's plans. And now FirstLight is starting to think that way. Is that correct?
Well, the 2 companies have very different personalities, which I guess is always the case. Great River Hydro was pretty, I don't know, they worked in a more collaborative way with stakeholders to come up with this flow proposal. I think partially because they knew that the state of Vermont and states of Vermont and New Hampshire were going to require something close to a run-of-river situation. Massachusetts DEP doesn't have as strong a track record on that. And FirstLight's corporate personality. They hold their cards pretty tightly. And they really haven't proposed anything significant in terms of the way the facilities would operate. They are going to, and they'll get to this later on. This picture in the background here shows that the power canal at Turner's Falls. So most of the water is diverted into this canal for about 3 miles. And then the actual river channel is quite dry most of the year. And the best part of the application involves pretty significant releases at the dam. So there'll be actually water in the river in the future. But the way the turbines operate and stuff, they're still proposing to peak pretty significantly.
Okay. But Kathy, at that point, did not think that FirstLight was looking at the same detail in terms of peak management. So,
Yeah, I mean, FirstLight has said in the past that they run Turner's Falls roughly kind of as run of whatever they get from Vernon. So I'd have to imagine that there would be some benefits from Great River Hydro's operations, that Turner's Falls will be, forced to sort of operate a little bit
well, I
different.
see. Yeah, that's a good point. So, all right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
When Northfield Mountain was built, they raised the elevation of the dam at Turner's Falls to accommodate this extra water. So the lower reservoir, there is this segment of water that's not the same molecules, but basically moves up and down Northfield Mountain. So in a way, it could be viewed as a little bit separate than the operation of the dam.
Okay.
But they do work in conjunction with each other. So this is just a little bit of background on the company. FirstLight, I don't know if you're aware of this, but a couple of years ago, they split the facilities into separate LLCs. So now the dam and Northfield Mountain are technically in separate companies, these shell layers, and then ultimately you get to FirstLight Power Services LLC, which is then owned by PSP Investments, which is a pension fund for the Canadian Mounted Police. So. And this is just a little summary of, the layout of Northfield Mountain area in Northfield. Route 63, which goes into Hinsdale, New Hampshire, runs through, and the upper reservoir you can see on the right. There's a set of trails and then a visitor center in the center of the picture. Then you can see there's a solar array that's also a separate company, but it's owned by FirstLight. And then, can you see my cursor moving
Yes.
around? Okay, great. This is the tail race where water is pumped. They have reversible turbines, so water gets pumped up into the upper reservoir and then released in the same location. So the issues that we kind of went into knowing, and then also that we found out from the relicensing studies, were, huge river fluctuations on a daily basis because of the pump storage. That has contributed to major erosion problems. And I know Vernon has sometimes been involved a little bit in the Stream Bank Erosion Committee. I don't remember the fellow who attended some meetings in the past, but decades of landowners battling with the power company over loss of farmland, and the company has paid for various bank stabilization projects. And that round has kind of come to an end. The other issue that the studies shed some light on is that the operation of Northfield Mountain has an impact on entraining downstream migrating American eel and juvenile shad in the fall, and then also shad eggs and larvae. And so it didn't seem like there was a significant impact on migration upstream in the spring. It's more the downstream and then the shad eggs. And then the other thing is that there are some state listed dragonfly species along the banks, and the fluctuation impacts the moment of when dragonflies emerge from their larval form, which is an aquatic form, and then they have to dry their wings and fly off. Then the other piece of this is just offering recreation amenities, and I'll get into that later. And just a reminder of the when all 4 units at Northfield Mountain are generating, that is a 20,000 CFS flow rate, which is way more than even the main stem Connecticut River in the summertime. So it can make the flows of the river go upstream when it's generating, or yeah, and there was a study that showed that, if you're curious, it only looked sort of like, I think 5 kilometers upstream and downstream from the tail race. So it doesn't show the Vernon section, but it was interesting. Just it really made it clear how under certain scenarios the river flows upstream. So this slide sort of summarizes the what the license application is going to propose, or is proposing. They are going to install a very large barrier net at the tail race of Northfield Mountain, which still, that's going to be a tough thing to design correctly and then get permitted. For recreation, they're going to put a new hand carry access in this Riverview area, and then they have to move the existing dock they have boat tours there, and they have to move that dock because the barrier net's going to be in the way. And then they're going to put a new hand carry access location down here at the confluence of the Millers River at a property they already own called Cabot Camp. And then they've said that they're going to limit the rate of rise of the water level in the impoundment from mid-May to mid-August. But I think this is kind of close to the rate that they already do. So this wasn't a big change for them. And then they are not proposing any changes in the overall range of fluctuation of the impoundment, which is a disappointment for us anyway. So the issue of erosion is one that, was a big deal going into it. And FirstLight spent a lot of money on a very detailed causation study where they took transects like the ones you see on the right and used a flow model and an operations model and an erosion model called B-stem at these transect locations to identify dominant causes of erosion, contributing causes of erosion, contributing factors, and contributing processes of erosion. it was hundreds of pages, definitely kind of a smoke and mirrors thing. And lo and behold, the Northfield operations was a dominant cause at only one location, basically right across from the tail race, and it was a contributing cause at 2 other transects. What they found was that high flows were the dominant cause at most sites, and boat wakes were another influence closer down to Barton Cove. We hired a peer reviewer, Princeton Hydro, and they identified a number of different issues with that study. And I think the main takeaway from the peer review is that FirstLight's model kind of ignored the instigating effect of erosion at the toe of the slope. So if the river fluctuation led to notching basically at the typical water level, that would lead to instability, but the moment that the bank failed was during high flows, so it made it look like that's the thing that caused the erosion. So consequently, their amended final license application proposes absolutely nothing for erosion because they don't feel like they're the cause of it. The hydrograph on the right of this is a station located near the Route 10 bridge in Northfield. I don't know if you're aware that this exists, but you can look at the fluctuation in real time online at the USGS, all the river gauges location, and you can see how much it varies every day. We had been pushing for a holistic riparian management plan that would address multiple issues and kind of takes into account the presence of the dams so that, we're not trying to return the river to sort of pre-dam conditions, but still let it manage it as a river. And we had some meetings and really feel like both companies should have a similar plan that's not just like identify erosion and fix it, but in some cases it would be, but do other things like, maybe reduce or manage the banks to encourage landowners to have a wider vegetative buffer, or even reducing the amount of bittersweet along the river. That also seems like it's killing trees that would contribute to erosion, and just do things like that. But they're not proposing anything. I'm going to move to the dam proposals, but does anyone have any questions before I shift downstream a little bit?
Andrea, was there a reaction on part of FirstLight to the peer review that you had done and the comments about that, that they were responsible, basically, if I understood it right, for starting the erosion or making possible the erosion due to flow, that if it wasn't for Northfield Mountains sloshing there, then that flow erosion wouldn't happen. And did they have a reaction to that?
There is, on our comments on the study report, they did respond, but most of it was basically trying to minimize our comments. So I don't think we got anywhere really with them. So we encouraged Massachusetts DEP to also hire a peer reviewer, because when the study came out, they didn't really write any substantial comments. So they have since contracted with a different company to do a peer review, and that contract was in the beginning of the year, so I haven't been spoken to anybody about what they're finding, but it would be nice if that review corroborated ours, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Just a quick, I was struck by, I didn't realize how much more important in terms of power generation the storage is. I mean, it's more than 10 times as much, right? 1,100, and the others are like 32 and 45.
It's huge, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, that's really, really valuable to them. And I would think there'd be something better that they can do than just put a net in. You know, maybe, I mean, could you have them make a whole new outfall so that they could spread it? I mean, it just seems with that, at that scale of economic value, it seems like the regulators could be stronger.
Yeah, we have been pushing, we requested a study for like a full alternative study of things that they could do to minimize the use of the river. Like even, well, you know, use a lower reservoir. We requested that. They absolutely refused, saying it would be akin to redesigning a whole new facility. We've floated the idea of a partial lower reservoir that, you know, maybe could be used as some sort of short-term buffering the river a little bit. There are some new technologies coming out, and we do have a little grant money to hire a consultant to try to look into some of these and just do our own brainstorming. You know, we're not energy experts at CRC, but we've been trying to figure out ways to, you know, negotiate something better for the river, but still understanding how important economically this facility is. They definitely tout it. They're, you know, ISO New England considers Northfield Mountain to be very important for the grid stability. It's there. If anything's needed, they can black start, you know, other regional grids. So even though there are people who, you know, insist on shutting it down, my organization does acknowledge sort of how, in terms of power, it wouldn't, you know, I don't think it makes sense to get rid of it completely.
No, and I wouldn't suggest that either. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a capacity to do more.
Yeah,
well,
that's what we've been encouraging them to do.
that's a good point.
Unfortunately, they're wanting to use more of the upper reservoir. I didn't get into this, but there is a extra volume in the upper reservoir that was built in to accommodate Boston's water supply in the 1970s and 80s. They thought they were running out of water, and so the idea was to, during the spring freshet, capture some water coming downriver and then pipe it over to the Quabbin Reservoir. And that never happened. They MWRA instituted water conservation, and it's been incredibly successful. So, but Northfield Mountain now wants to use that extra capacity to move to, and that'll have, I think, even a larger effect on the river. And they really haven't proposed mitigation measures that seem to be in line with the extra revenue that they are going to be generating from that.
Wow.
This is Bob. What Wendy points out is great. You know, here's a company with literally millions of dollars of revenue per year that, like FirstLight or Great River Hydro realized, they can still accommodate some of these river management goals and still be profitable.
Yeah, that is the frustrating thing dealing with them.
Yes.
They don't give a whole lot.
Well, I guess the Canadian Mounted Police need a lot of money.
The
Yeah.
retailers. Andrea, of course, our interest is Vernon and what happens in the river above the state line. So especially with again, the peer-reviewed study that you had done, did that find, what did that find with regard to erosion along the Vernon shore up there?
They did not specifically look as part of the peer review at individual transect locations. It was such a huge study that it would be, very expensive to do it at that level. The map I showed you, let's see, here that shows the transects. It would be possible for you to look at particularly the red ones. They have those are transects that they've mapped the profile of. FirstLight has done this over a period of, I don't know, 20 years, and there are lines showing where it has been. I mean, the location of these transects, I don't know how they were chosen in the very beginning. They don't necessarily represent, key spots that have been moving, but they have been monitored for many years. These spots
And is
represent,
the blue line down there, is that a
yeah, the blue
transect?
lines represent different, like land-based evaluations that I looked up before our meeting, and for other ones further down river, they hired a contractor who made very beautiful profile watercolor drawings and then described what was going on at each site. But for some reason, they didn't have them for the ones in Vernon. I don't really understand. I think maybe there was some asterisks, and it sounded like they did a survey earlier in the process. Maybe it's in a different study report. I could look into that, but that's the kind of thing that, if you were really interested in digging into those locations, I could try to pinpoint the pages or just pull out that section of the report.
Yeah, well, Bob would know better, but I think that sort of lower down on this map is where we are aware of more erosion that we think is caused by Northfield rather than, up there in the Great Bend. I mean, the river's always there is a high flow rate there. It's very narrow, and it's most likely not due to Northfield.
Yeah, well, Jeff Dunkley on our planning commission owns extensive lands as a farm in Vernon and has had huge erosion problems. And there have been some mitigation measures over the years. So literally acres of prime ag land have been lost in Vernon, accelerated loss, according to
Yeah.
Jeff and his father, Alfred, God bless him. So this is all part of our concern here.
And I think that kind of thing would be, to the extent that you can document it and describe it and submit that to FERC, it would be really helpful. I think, they've kind of gotten sick of us complaining about this over the years. So to have, multiple.
Well, that's why I brought it up. We have a farm, a family, generating tax revenue, obviously. And there's other landowners on the river too that have experienced loss, but they don't document it. They don't have the means to, GPS each square foot and all that. So actually, these are the reasons that we're, concerned. erosion is probably the main reason, other than recreation.
Yeah, and I'll talk a little bit more about recreation afterwards. Interestingly, Stebbins Island was found to be where there's shad spawning and sea lamprey nests. It's kind of it's the one like real riverine section of the whole reach between Turner's Falls and Vernon. And there's some riffly areas and some good habitat, so. All right, so I'll probably go through this fairly quickly. But this is now Barton Cove. The dam is here at Avenue A. And then, as I mentioned before, the river is diverted into this power canal at Turner's Falls. And then power is generated in 2 locations. There's a teeny station called Station 1, about 1/3 down the canal. And then at the end of the canal is called Cabot Station. And that's where most of the power is generated. And then the actual river channel is referred to by the company as the bypass reach. So that gives you a sense of how much power is generated at these locations, which is teeny compared to Northfield, which has, 1,000 megawatts.
Well, the Vernon Dam is what, 60 megawatts?
I always forget.
Yeah. So
Was that first?
isn't that right, Martin? 60?
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got comparable power, down gradient here.
Yeah. So the issues at Turner's Falls are that more water needs to be in the actual river channel. The fish ladders do not work that well. There are actually two routes that upstream migrating shad can take. There's fish ladders at Cabot Station, fish ladder at the spillway, and then the shad that go up at Cabot have to swim upstream in the canal, which was found to be, by the relicensing studies, a real waste of time for shad. They spend about a week in there, which is just taking up a lot of critical energy. And then both routes involve a small ladder through the gatehouse at the dam. So in terms of getting fish up to Vernon, Turner's Falls is, has a poor performance right now, and one of the goals would be to improve that. There are short-nosed sturgeon in the Cabot Station area that spawn, so that's important to improve the situation for federally endangered species. Recreation is an issue again, and then also better recognition of the cultural heritage for tribal groups. I'll just skim through this, but basically Turner's Falls has 2 dams with different types of gates, which affect the types of releases they can do. It's split up by a little island in the middle. So the license application is proposing a new lift. This is the fish lift here. There's fish ladder right here. They're going to put an elevator in like they have at Holyoke. Hopefully that'll work better, and put eelways in. There's no eel passage right now. They're going to spill more water at the dam, and then as long as the new stuff works, they're going to dismantle the existing fish ladders. They're also going to prevent fish from getting into this like little extension to Station 1. And then for fish that are migrating downstream over the bascule gate here, right now it's they don't have enough flows, but basically a fish would crash into the dam structure and get killed. So they're going to put in a plunge pool below that. And then they're also proposing to put a river access downstream of the dam. They're going to have whitewater releases on 8 Saturdays. And they're going to have a website in which people could determine what the flows are at the dam, but they're only going to do that for, I think, summer and fall, not year round. And then in the winter, the bascule gates freeze up, so they have to put heaters on them so that they can move the mechanism and release better flows in the winter right now. And I can go through this or skim it a bit if you're not as interested, but the table up here shows how little water is released at the dams, depending on the time of year, but the most they ever have to release is 400 cubic feet per second during the fish passage season. During the winter and into before May 1st, they have no flows at all from the dam. It's very bony and rocky. So this shows the various seasonal flows. We're not so happy about the 300 CFS or even the 670 or 500, but during the spring, it's going to be way better. And that's the best, that's the strongest part of their proposal, I think. And this, we did meet with FirstLight for about 2 years, attempting to come to a settlement agreement, and we made a lot of progress on these. This is where we made the most progress, but then the talks kind of collapsed, and there was no formal written agreement or anything. This slide shows a little bit more detail about what the fish lift, where it'll be, which is around here, and then just a very general schematic of what a fish lift looks like. I don't know if any of you have ever been down to Holyoke Dam to see the lift. It's pretty cool. Do you want me to go through this in detail or just skip through?
No, that's good. Thank you.
And then at the end of the canal, there's some more details about what's going on. It has this interesting rock dam feature, and then this is where the Deerfield River comes in. There, because Cabot is always going to, the flows from Cabot will still attract fish that are migrating upstream. They're going to put this ultrasound array to basically repel the shad, and then they also hope that having more water in the actual river channel will attract fish up to the dam. And then they're going to hold Cabot Station at a particular minimum flow to try to minimize the on and off for shad spawning, and then also short-nosed sturgeon spawning and eggs. There currently, if you're going to portage around the Turner's Falls Dam, they'll drive you to this location at Poplar Street, and the access is horrible. It's a very steep eroded bank. It's impossible to get a canoe down without killing yourself, and it's like even harder to get out of the river at that location. And then there are some seasonal up-ramping restrictions for dragonflies and the Puritan tiger beetle, and then some down-ramping restrictions for short-nosed sturgeon. So next, I'm going to go into a little bit more about kind of the recreation plan. FirstLight did something different than Great River Hydro. Had no real recreation plan in their amended final license application, but then I don't know if you've been updated that they did in mid-March submit to FERC a little bit more details in the form of some Excel spreadsheets that do itemize some costs at Vernon Dam and things that they're thinking of doing. Have you seen those?
No, yeah, we haven't, no.
Okay. I can have Kathy send you those.
So one of our major goals here, Andrea, is to figure out what Vernon has to put into formal comment
Mhm.
and coordinate with the select board. And so it's hard for us to know, like right now, about the, the nets, and, does that really benefit Vernon or not? I mean,
Right.
we all love the river. We all use it, and so that's an ongoing discussion with you guys and Kathy and Brett.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I would say that what Northfield Mountain and Turner's Falls, what FirstLight has proposed is ridiculously small amount of investment in recreation. If you look at their revenues, I mean, they make in 1 year $158 million. And the stuff they're proposing, one thing is just a collateral, like move a dock because something else is going to be in the way. That's not an enhancement.
Right.
This license is going to be in place for 40 or 50 years, and they're really not investing significantly in recreation. And in March, they submitted these tables that showed how much they're going to put into their ongoing recreation maintenance. And I'm still incredulous, and I had to ask the consultant if they're real on this, but they're only going to spend $1,000 a year on maintaining Northfield Mountain. They've been spending, tens of thousands a year prior to this. So I don't know. It's like they won't even be able to mow the lawn in front of the education center for that amount of money, I don't think. So I would definitely press them on more regional perspective of investing in the Connecticut River and the amazing resource it is. I do know that some towns, like Montague in particular, is talking with FirstLight and really pressing them to do more. So, I don't know, Wendy, if you're familiar with some of the town administrators in Massachusetts that are affected by the license.
No, but I was just gonna ask, I mean, I've been familiar with this process, and I thought our role was to wait until the official comment period and then make a lot of statements. I didn't understand that municipalities should be talking now to FirstLight or Great River Hydro.
Yeah, there's nothing formal. There's no particular reason. I've just heard that FirstLight has been reaching out individually to towns. Why they're doing that, I'm not sure. They might be getting some pressure and sensing that they're going to have to do something else. Their license application recreation management plans were portrayed as final plans, but we've never really been able to weigh in on a draft. So it's just kind of a weird process. I think weighing in as early as possible would at least signal to them that, you know, you want to engage.
Great. And any sample or suggested language that you can provide to towns
Okay,
would be really helpful.
okay.
Yeah, I agree, Wendy. We should have our official, Vernon, correspondence on the record as soon as possible.
Right, and reserve the right to comment further. I took a
Right.
few photos of our portage today, and it doesn't seem, it's better than Bellas Falls, but it doesn't seem very good to me. I don't know what is reasonable to request in a portage.
Right. So Andrea, our goal is to have the select board and the planning commission have a unified position at the appropriate time. And given the 401, isn't that what it's called?
Mhm.
401, comment period. There's also the FERC entire relicensing process. It's confusing,
Yeah,
so we
Yeah.
need help. We need help.
yes, we've heard that from others. We'll try to do the best we can.
Yes. So
Yeah, I think it makes sense to try to pool resources and come up with some,
Right.
sample language.
And we also, as the town of Vernon, benefit from the power production of the Vernon Dam.
Yeah.
We have an agreement with the owner of the dam, right, Wendy?
Yeah, I don't know if the town directly benefits from the power, because my understanding is the power company uses it to fill in and to generate power when the prices are high. So it's more of a revenue generator for them, and power goes out of town. We do get tax revenue, but they also sue us every time the value is redone.
Right.
Um,
But
in a
we do
lawsuit.
don't we have a payment in lieu of taxes agreement?
Yes, but that agreement is because of lawsuits, or that agreement is a result of lawsuits. They don't just voluntarily come and say, hey, let me write you a check.
Hey, that's
on.
very important to understand that,
Yeah, and it's the same way in Bellas Falls. Bellas Falls gets more revenue because the dam is entirely within the village because of the state line is different there. But again, it's always a struggle and lawsuits every time.
Yeah, so Montague and Gill recently settled a property tax battle with FirstLight that covers a certain periods of years. So they've gone through the same thing. They do not have a payment in lieu of taxes agreement. So I don't know, it might be interesting to trade stories with Steve Ellis, who's the Montague town administrator. Find out how they went, how much money, I don't know, it'd be good to know kind of the comparison of what they're getting for these things.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt your presentation.
Sure. What? I'm just going to skip over those other things. That's my contact information. I'm still working at home, but my business telephone number does forward to my cell number. And hopefully I'll go back to the office at some point. I think I can also, I'm going to stop sharing, but I can probably pull up, Kathy has a slide that summarizes what Great River Hydro has proposed for recreation at Vernon. So let me just find that and I can pull it up, the slide.
Sorry to jump in, but I just wanted to say that unfortunately I have to take off, but it was nice to see everybody. And Andrea, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really interesting to hear, and hope to hear some more in the future. And I'll talk to you all soon.
All right, great.
Thank you, Alec.
Bye, Al.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too.
Okay, so here is a slide that Kathy put together that takes the information that Great River Hydro put in their response to questions. So you can see kind of what Great River Hydro is thinking.
Yeah, can you send us that? Is that possible?
Yeah,
It's funny, the portage looks a lot better in their photos than in mine. What do you know, right?
yeah. Well, that's Kathy's picture. I don't know when she took it.
Oh, okay.
There has actually been some work going on, I'm not sure what, down at the beach area and up above. They're doing some, it looks like some plantings or lawn work or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that today. All right, so this is better than what FirstLight's planning with the others.
Yeah, it seems like they've hit on most of the things I've heard about the Vernon Dam area, the improvements that would be needed, but you guys might have other ideas. I don't know. I'll send it to you, and then I don't know, do you have any questions, comments, anything else based on what I presented or stuff I missed that you want to know about?
Looks like Bob stepped away, but I do not. There he
I'm
is.
sorry, what's that?
Do you have any other sort of commentary or questions or things?
No, this is great. I mean, this is a huge issue for the town of Vernon, and it's complicated by two different owners, and so thank you very much.
Sure, you're welcome.
Any other questions for Andrea?
No, I guess comments that we have, we should send them to the state also, right? You're talking about the 401, that's the state permit?
That's a
Yes,
federal permit. Is not a federal permit?
401 is issued by the state agency.
Oh, it is. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
So it has the same name in both states, 401?
Yeah, that's a section of the Clean Water Act. So, yep, every state does 401.
Yeah, that's what I meant. It's a federal Clean Water Act section, I believe.
It's a federal requirement, but the states are the
Okay, no.
of it.
No, that's good. So, all right, well,
In the case of these Connecticut River projects, sometimes like New Hampshire has yielded to Vermont or vice versa, but I believe the two states are going to be issuing, separate and hopefully complementary 401s. That's a Kathy thing, but that's the sense we've gotten so far.
All right, and can they deal with erosion? The 401s?
Yep.
All right. Great,
all right. Hey, Andrea, thank you so much.
thank you.
You're welcome. Good to meet all you.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks for inviting me.
All right, so we'll move on. I don't know, I'd like to ask Martin if there's anything you'd like to say about the EDA, U.S. Economic Development Authority grant process that's been torturing you?
Nope.
Us?
Nothing new. Just waiting till the municipal planning grant
Right.
project is done.
Right. Well, just so we all agree, the municipal planning grant will help, we think, us prepare a better application.
Exactly.
And we did have a call to discuss this, and so, yeah, okay. I think the next thing is, oh yeah, we have the summit on the future of Vermont. And Jim, you've actually volunteered to participate. And Wendy suggested that we ask the select board to cover the $38 or whatever registration fee. And
33.
I'd like to know if others would like to be on that list.
Let me give you a brief on what it does, what they're talking about here. This summit is gonna supposedly bring Vermonters together virtually on the 26th and 27th of May to consider the Vermont Proposition, a set of bold and transformative goals for the state's economy and environment and people by mid-century, and nonpartisan multi-section, boy, it's a mouthful, platform of action to achieve them. The parts that there's pieces of this conference that a lot of people should be interested in, that on the planning commission and other places. I've sent forwarded the summit information to a bunch of places now. And it's $33 registration fee, $33.44. And it sounds like, looking at the list of speakers and the topics that they're having, sounds like, boy, it's got something that's going to interest a wide range of people, and specifically anybody involved in planning. There's a couple of really interesting sounding planning sessions they got going too, on how to plan and how to approach it.
Well, we appreciate that. And Martin and me and Wendy have looked at the agenda, and we think it would be good to have someone from Vernon attending. So thank you, Jim. And Wendy, if you can make that $33 application fee a town expense, that would be great.
Sure. And so are there two of you then? Bob, were you interested in going also?
I am, but I can't.
Oh, okay. So if anybody else wants to go, just let me know, please, by tomorrow so that I can ask Cindy for the right amount.
Right. Hey, Jim, thank you so much. This is what we do as a planning commission. You know, I have to say that we, divide and conquer. There's so many things that we could do, and for you to volunteer that, that's really nice. Thank you.
No problem at all.
Okay. Our next agenda item, and we're getting close, kids, is, we don't have any new information from the review. So, Martin, do you see anything else we need?
Nope.
Oh, we have new business. I have one new business item. Martin, are we good?
Yeah, I have nothing else.
Okay. Jason O'Brien sent me an email today that he's going to resign from the planning commission, and he's just been elected or taken on the role of chair of the Vernon Recreation Committee, which, as we all know, is a huge role in Vernon. So he just said he can't do both of us or other things. So we do now have a vacancy. So we had a subcommittee of, so I would like to actually have a vote to accept his resignation and extend our appreciation to Jason O'Brien.
I move to accept his resignation and extend our appreciation.
Thank you. Second,
I'll second it.
thank you. All in favor? Aye.
All right.
By the way, he's also being elected the president of the Fox Hill Homeowners Association, which is an actual job of taking care of our neighborhood septic system. So, so
All
he's
right.
taking on two big things.
Yeah, well, Jason's been great. We were so happy to have him on the planning commission. And, you know, just like all these small towns, we have very few volunteers, so. Is there any new business? No,
I have a reminder,
yes, Wendy.
which is that the select board sent the planning commission the floodplain regulations for you to review and make a recommendation back to the select board.
Oh, the floodplain regs?
Yeah,
Those are federally mandated FEMA, right?
somewhat, but I mean, the maps are FEMA maps, but
Should we-
towns have choices in Vermont.
Should we take action on it?
Eventually, yes. What you're supposed to do is review the current regulations. There, you have a couple of alternatives. One of them, there's a Wyndham Regional alternative, and then there's a state alternative. We chose previously the Wyndham Regional alternative, but the problem is we don't have the structures in place in the town to enforce it. So we've suspended town use of those regulations. So they're not in place, or they're not being enforced right now.
So is the select board commenting on this too?
Well, the select board had asked you guys to comment on it. I sent you something probably a couple months ago. I can send it again.
Yeah, please do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
could we just sort of, could we circulate that before the next meeting
Yeah.
and review it and deal
Wendy.
with it next meeting?
Yeah, it's gonna take a little thought. I don't,
All right, well. put
and,
it-
and it's not an emergency, but it needs to be on your list.
All right, agenda, June. And for those of you listening, this is important for the flood hazard insurance that certain parties benefit from along the river, right, Wendy?
Yes, yes.
So, all right, is there any other business?
I got one.
Yes, Jim.
This is kind of short fused, but I was just reading in the Digger the other day about the thing that they call them in the federal government earmarks. And Senator Leahy has requested that towns that are interested in using up some of these federal funds that he might be able to earmark onto existing bills, get to him with at least, we're interested sometime before the end of May. His staff was pretty insistent that and hopeful that they'd get a lot. All bets are off on these. The earmarks can cover a multitude of sin. Maybe that's the wrong word to use there, but they can cover areas that we're interested in getting worked on, and federal funding never hurts from the select board perspective or from the planning board selective. At least we can make suggestions about that. Anyway, it's food for thought.
It's funny because we had staff members, two staff members, I think, from Leahy's office at last month's meeting, and they didn't say anything about that.
Yeah.
But,
I read it in the Digger, I think Tuesday.
okay,
Yeah, the problem, Jim, and I've been following this through my other work
Mhm.
at the Wyndham Solid Waste District. is that you have to have kind of shovel-ready projects.
Yikes.
And we're so early in the planning process for VY.
Mhm.
I mean, we don't even have control of the site or anything, so. I actually don't think it's something that we could be competitive with unless we had a real project like build a walkway in the center of Vernon, you know?
We could build a community center at the Governor Hunt House, you know,
Bingo.
Right.
$250,000 would go a long way there.
So we could apply.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into it.
All right, Martin, add it to your huge list. So, hey, Jim, that was very good. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
And Roger, thank you for being part of our commission.
Well, I'm just getting my feet wet.
Yep. Is there any other business tonight? All right, Wendy, thank you so much. for
No
being
problem.
part- So, all right, we'll conclude the meeting at, what is it, 8?
8:20.
Thank you. All right. Hey, great meeting, folks. And Andrea was fantastic.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care.